Hi viewers, for my latest short interview, I'm privileged to have ex-Muslim and authoress Yasmine Mohammed. How are you, Yasmine?
Hello, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, honestly, because I've heard something of your horrifying story of your upbringing, and I'd like you to, if you would be so kind, to give our viewers a little pocket account now. Would you do that, please?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Canada in an Egyptian family. My mother was the second wife to a man. And when I say second wife, I mean second concurrent wife. So Islamically, a man can have up to 4 wives. So my mom was wife number 2. Her and my dad recently had divorced, and so she had 3 children. And so his first wife lived upstairs, and because my mom already had 3 children and she was like the second wife, she lived in the basement. So that's where we all lived. And it was a very religious upbringing. So we were forced to memorize the Quran. We were forced to pray 5 times a day. You know, we'd have to get up before sunrise for prayer and stay up until after sunset for another prayer. And so I lived like that, and we went to Islamic schools, and in Islamic school I had to wear hijab, which means that everything was covered but my face and hands. And I was the kind of person who always questioned, who always asked questions. And so my family felt that I needed to marry somebody, or they needed to marry me off to somebody who was strong enough to control me. And so they married me off to a member of Al-Qaeda named Assam Marzouk. And I had a daughter with him. And when I was married to him, the few freedoms that I had growing up were taken away. So just physically, that's represented by the fact that hijab covered everything but my face and hands. But when I married him, covered up even my face and hands as well. So I had gloves delivered from Saudi Arabia and a niqab delivered from Saudi Arabia. So that covers, you know, everything. And he would paper up the windows just in case the curtains moved and somebody might see in. So I was essentially living in a prison, and in a portable prison. If I ever left the house either, I had to be wearing this portable sensory deprivation chamber you know, it's to the point now that when we have to wear masks whenever we go places. And I was saying to my husband, we'd just gone food shopping and I had to wear the mask the whole time in there. And we got back into the car and I just started crying because I hate wearing the mask so much. It just brings back so many memories of having to wear the niqab. And I said to him, like, I know I'm fighting against wearing this mask. Like, if I just submit, which is the definition of the word Islam, and if I just accept that I have to wear a mask, and then I can be okay with it. But I resist even letting myself be okay with wearing a mask because it reminds me too much of my life where I had to stop resisting and just wear the niqab, you know? So it's like the memory, even though it was like 20 years ago, it's still too close, you know? And that's just one little piece of cloth restricting just this part of my face, you know, as opposed to the niqab was, of course, everything. But it's kind of disconcerting to realize how those kinds of things just stay with you. And I have to remind myself that I have 2 daughters today that are both free and happy, and I did that. It was because I fought against this that they are able to be free and happy. And so I have to constantly, when I get so upset over the fact that I will never be free of the trauma and the chains, I can just think about how my daughters are free. And in fact, that's even more valuable to me than me being free. So I've stopped the cycle. And that's what I do. That's my book,
Yes.
Unveiled, that I wrote was to that end. It was all about telling my story of freeing myself and encouraging other women and hopefully inspiring other women and men to free themselves from this ideology that is robbing them of their life. They're wasting their life to, it's a figment of a goat herder's imagination from 1400 years ago.
Yes.
You're restricting your life, you're losing your happiness for the figment of the imagination of a man who died, over 1,000 years ago. It's so nonsensical, and I want people to embrace their lives. You only have one. This is it. There is no afterlife. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is your happiness. This is your opportunity. Embrace it, grab it, carpe diem, and I wasted so much of my life on a lie, and it's angering, and it's frustrating, and it's sad, and you just really you're compelled. You're so compelled to reach out to other people and say, don't make the same mistake I did.
Yes.
And so with my book, I tried to do that, and with my organization, Free Hearts, Free Minds, which supports people who have left Islam but are unfortunately not as lucky as I was, because I was born and raised in a secular country where I had the support of, I could get student loans and go to university. I could get social assistance. I didn't live in a country where the police were going to arrest me, or where the the laws say that I should be beheaded for leaving Islam. I'm allowed to be whatever religion I want, or no religion at all in a secular country. And that's not the case for so many people around the world. And so that's through my organization, Free Hearts, Free Minds, I'm reaching out to those people and offering them support. And so I'm trying to give back, I'm trying to take my trauma and turn it into something positive, so that I'm not feeling angry and upset over what happened in my past, but instead I'm going to take that and use it to propel me to support other people around the world and to try and do good.
Well, it's horrifying, isn't it? The fundamentalist Islamic attitude towards women. They're not just a second-class citizen. They're a toy. They're a specimen. They're a pet to be abused as you wish. It's
absolutely. And even with a pet, you would have laws that say you can't abuse your animals. But in Islam, a man is told that if you fear disobedience, if you fear arrogance from your wife, beat her.
Yes.
So it's even more than a pet. It's worse. It's a prisoner.
Yes.
And in fact, that's how in Islam, in Saudi Arabia, that's what their guardianship laws are. So when you take the religion of Islam and you say, what does this look like in reality? A Sharia law country like Saudi Arabia will show you what that looks like in reality. In reality, the women there are under the guardianship of their fathers, and then their husbands, and then maybe even their sons.
Yes.
And so women are never free. They're always prisoners to a man.
Yes. So what do you think about moderate Muslims? Because we have some in the UK who are not Sharia dominated. And my thing is, they're the thin end of the wedge, because some of them have brought their children up in the mosque and then watched their children get radicalized and go off to fight for ISIS and never come back. So my view is that it's a gateway drug. Moderate Islam is a gateway drug for fundamentalist Islam.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's really the main message of Sam Harris's book, The End of Faith, where he's arguing essentially the same thing, that as long as you're still in it, you're going to, as long as you still believe these things. Exactly. Yeah. So whether you are picking up the sword yourself, or whether you're just standing on the sidelines and saying, well, that's what my religion teaches, so I'm not gonna stand in the way, I'm not gonna try to prevent it, I'm not gonna speak out against it, then in fact you are supporting it. Whether it's passively or actively, you're still supporting the same thing. So that is definitely true what you say, but the problem is that we're dealing with a population of almost 2 billion people. And so within that population, you have a spectrum of everything from the Muslim who sleeps around, drinks alcohol, eats bacon, but still calls themselves a Muslim, all the way to the far other end of the spectrum, where you essentially have ISIS. Or Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is a PhD in Islamic studies. And where did that lead him? It led him to become the leader of ISIS. So that's what happens. That's what happens when you follow Islam. So we've got a spectrum here, and you've got so many different people within that spectrum. And you're absolutely correct. As long as you are believing these things, there's always going to be a sense of danger there. But there are some people who now call themselves Reform Muslims. And so they want to maintain their identity as Muslims, but they disagree with pretty much, 90% of the religion. So for whatever reason, they want to, they believe in the equality of men and women. They believe in secularism. They believe in LGBT equality. They believe in freedom of speech, but they still want to be Muslim. So all of those things are the antithesis of Islam. They are complete, you will be killed by the extremist Muslims because they will consider you a non-Muslim anyway. When my mom threatened to kill me, it was just because I had removed the hijab. I was still a Muslim. I was still identifying as a Muslim, but it didn't matter, because the fact that I removed the hijab to her meant you're now it's a very, you're either with us or you're against us kind of mentality. And if you're going to do the smallest infraction, then you are considered the enemy. And so whether it's you or me who don't believe in Islam at all, or whether it's Majid Nawaz or Asr Nomani or Imam Tawhidi or all of these other prominent Muslim reformers who believe in maintaining their identity as a Muslim but not living as Muslims at all, they will equally be killed by ISIS. ISIS doesn't, or by the extremists. They won't differentiate between us, right? No. But I do believe that we need to work with those people who are trying to reform their religion, or to reform their believers, because you can't reform the religion, but you can at least reform Muslims if you can't reform Islam. To work with them in that goal, only because they are in just as much danger as we are, and they are fighting a battle that we need to fight because we need to fight against the extremists who really are the majority. People like to say, oh, they're just a small minority. But if you look at statistics, as you mentioned, and the statistics are there's tons of Pew Research out there that shows you that the vast majority of Muslims do have these archaic, barbaric ideas, and whether they actively act on them or not is a separate issue. But, you know, the fact that they harbor these beliefs is something that we need to fight against. You know, we need to fight those bad ideas with good ideas. Obviously, we're not going to, when I say fight against, I don't mean actively like,
No.
you know, yeah, but I mean, like, we need to educate, you know, just the same way we educate against sexism or racism or any other dangerous thinking out there. We need to fight against these archaic, barbaric, horrific, misogynistic ideals that Islam preaches.
Yes. Well, our view from the point of view of Atheism International, is that religions are divisive, and
100%.
they're based on a falsehood. So they're a division that we could easily do without. And these moderate Muslims are within proximity of becoming atheists, it seems to me. They've abandoned a lot of the horrifying aspects of Islam. They've made up, if you like, Islam light.
Yes, correct.
And they just need a little kick, and they will be secularists like you and I. So we can't afford to stop talking about it. Being muzzled is not the way forward, even though the terrorists are trying to frighten us into not speaking up, which brings me to today's news. Would you like to respond to the barbaric decapitation of a woman in Nice by a man who called out Allahu Akbar?
So this is very new news right now. I didn't really have a chance to read up on it, but I've seen enough. I'm still reeling from what happened to Samuel Paty, so I can't even imagine how the people of France are feeling right now. Like, they're already under so much pressure because they're on lockdown because of COVID, and then they have like their entire, you know, raison d'etre for their country, you know, which is freedom. That's really, you know, fraternity, you know, equality, liberalism. These are the cornerstones of French society. And to have invited in your terrorists, with open arms, the people who will eventually start beheading your citizens and trying to undermine the cornerstones of your society. I mean, I think that Macron has been responding correctly. I think it's wonderful.
But what has he got for his efforts? He's been accused of Islamophobia.
The thing is those idiots will always exist. This is the thing. You said that the jihadis are trying to silence us. The terrorists are trying to silence us through violence. And you're correct. But what people don't recognize and what they need to recognize is that there are two streams here. You have the jihadis that try to silence us by literally cutting off our necks, by literally killing people in Charlie Hebdo, by literally killing Theo Van Gogh, right? Those are the jihadis. And you've got the Islamists who are trying to silence criticism, but instead of wielding a sword, they wield the term Islamophobia.
Yes.
It is the exact same end. Both the Islamists and the jihadis have the same goal. The goal is to silence criticism of Islam, to scare people into silence and submission, which is the definition of the word Islam. They want us to submit. So when you say the word Islamophobia, and when you try to get people to stop criticizing Islam, you are doing the work of those people. You are supporting the work of Islamists, and you are supporting the work of jihadis, because you are silencing criticism of this religion, which is meant, because their whole goal, both of them, their goal is to spread Islam across the globe, because that is what Islam compels them to do. That is what the religion demands that they do.
Yes.
The religion is constantly, if any of your listeners pick up a Quran, open it to any random page, you'll find that that is what the Quran is asking, what Allah, the literal word of Allah, is asking Muslims to do over 300 times in that book, is to die in the name of Allah. So this is why they scream Allahu Akbar before they kill people. And they're trying to show, I am doing this for you, Allah. You know, this is for you. And this, you know, that disgusting, I don't even want to call him a human being, that thing that behead Samuel Paty, a teenager.
Yes.
Okay, so you can just imagine how much indoctrination, how deep it is that somebody would do that at the age of 18. Took pictures.
Yes.
After he murdered Samuel Paty, and when he posted it on Twitter, he posted a long, you know, allegiance to his Allah and to his prophet. It was very clear why he did it. It's very clear that this is all coming from that ideology. It's all coming from that indoctrination.
Yes.
And it's very scary to be someone, not only in France, but it should be scary to anybody in the Western world. Because people in the Islamic world, in Muslim majority countries, for like 40 or 50 years, they have been scared into submission by these extremists.
Yes.
And they have been giving their freedoms away happily because they're so scared of these extremists. And this is why when you look at pictures of Egypt or Libya or Afghanistan or Iran or any country in that region, look at the pictures in the 60s and 70s, and you'll see free people. You'll see women without hijab. You'll see cinemas, and you'll see universities. You'll see all sorts of women going to school. And then you see the regression happening in those past 40, 50 years. And that happened because the extremists became empowered. They empowered, first of all, with the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And then they became empowered with what happened with the Mujahideen in fighting against Russia and getting the support from the CIA and Bin Laden and 9/11 and all of this stuff just made them feel so powerful that they kept on expanding and expanding and expanding, and they expanded into the West. And now, when will people push back? Because nobody in the Islamic world was able to push back against them. So now they're here in the West. And so it is time to finally make them submit instead of continually submitting to their demands.
Yes, yes. Well, Persia wasn't perfect, but when it became Iran, it got a lot worse.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, and of course.
I'm happy to be able to tell you that northern Nigeria, which is a Sharia area, we are fighting to release 3 victims of the bogus crime of blasphemy, one of whom has been sentenced to death, another of whom is, I think, 11 years old, or maybe 13, and he's been sentenced to 10 years of hard labor. So we are engaged in that fight, and we have a GoFundMe, which I'll put underneath this video, for people to make donations. So we have to pay our lawyers. So please help them out. Now,
Mhm.
I could talk to you for hours, Yasmine, and I do want to have a quick word with you after. I mean, I know you've got another interview in a minute, but after I've ceased this interview, I want to have a quick private word with you about a project that I'm doing that I'd like to get you involved in.
Great.
Yes, you've been fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, John.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.